This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details.
This is Rob Gronkowski from Dudes on Dudes. Applebee's just cooked up the ultimate option play with their new Ultimate Trio deal. You can choose from 3 of their delicious appetizers and pair them up with 3 sauces for just $14.99. Craft your perfect trio from over 80,000 different combinations in this flavor-packed plate built for one, or to share if you're generous. You can stick with the classic pairings like boneless wings and buffalo sauce, or you can spice things up and try some unexpected pairings like dipping chicken wonton tacos in our honey Dijon mustard. It's time to head to your neighborhood Applebee's or order online today. Now that's eating good in the neighborhood.
Talk about stepping up.
It's time to level up your game. Introducing the all-new ESPN app. All of ESPN, all in one place. Your home for the most live sports and the best championship moments.
The electricity is palpable.
Step up your game with no annual contract required. It's the ultimate fan experience. Level up for more on the ESPN app or at stream.espn.com. Sign up now.
I believe Chief O'Hara said that the guns used in this atrocity were legally purchased. Is that correct?
Yes.
Without giving many more details about it?
And that they were purchased recently.
He did say that.
That's how he
right.
described
That's
it.
True. So Lou Ragusa is going to join from KARE 11. Been reporting on this story all day. What did you say, 5:15?
Yes.
And we are going to get to a little toy department stuff late. I think both of us felt a little bit more comfortable. If we did it at all, we would do it later in the program. So sometime later in the 5, we should be joined by Kevin Seifert as well. And there may be more guests coming.
If you do need a palate cleanser or a timeline cleanser today, and maybe right this second isn't the time for it, but the videos coming from the Thielen family and their kids talking about the excitement and just
to get away from it,
surprising them about that the trade is official. If people don't know, he's coming back. Adam Thielen, the ultimate palate cleanser on a horrible day.
Yeah, 100% true. And we'll get to all of that with, as I said, with Mr. Seifert later, and I'm sure we'll get back to it in more depth tomorrow and as we get closer to the start of the season. Let me further clarify on Patrick. He's not going to be on today. He can't come Sunday. We got too many guests, frankly, Thursday, Friday. So what we agreed to is sometime in the next week or two, we'll get him in studio just to catch up. We've tended to do that like once a year.
Be great.
Before. And so we'll eventually get him. And I'm hope maybe we can even get him, before the start of the football season. We'll see sometime after Labor Day. But that's the way we're planning it at this point. We're in this position where this is the way I put it regarding people who are convinced that there's already enough out to be certain exactly what motivated this individual. And we've laid out some of his pathetic rhetoric on a number of different subjects already, even threatening the President of the United States. There's a bevy of anti-Semitic messages that he has sent out and many other things. But the philosophy we have on this show, and you can reject it, and it's the philosophy we have whether it appears that the person is more, if you want to identify him with a political party, a shark or a jet, we'll follow the story. Let's gather a little bit more information before we go further. And even some of the stuff we talked about with the chief may not have anything to do with this event. That's what I tried to clarify and make clear. Doesn't mean we can't have those conversations. But here's the shorthand for me. A shark will be ready to jump the gun on who to blame and on motivation if it appears or they can link the perpetrator to being jet connected, right? Meanwhile, in that situation, the jet will say, slow down. Let's be patient. Let's actually find out what we're dealing with here. Meanwhile, the jet is 100% ready to jump the gun if he or she identifies the perpetrator as being shark connected, right? And in that scenario, the shark, the same shark who earlier said, let's be patient, will say, or there's no reason to be patient. We already know. We know the evil that's involved here and who they're blaming. That same person will now say, well, hold on a minute. Let's get a little bit more detail on what was involved here. Let's gather more information before we jump the gun. Anybody who's listened to this show over the years, I think will know we do try to follow the story, no matter who it ends up being exposed. I've gotten ripped on occasion for not assuming that when a racist allegation, a racial allegation is thrown out, that I'm not ready to skewer the individual and put him in prison forever before we get more information about whether whatever the allegation is actually race related or has racism connected to it. So that if you're looking for red meat, you might be disappointed in that regard. If you're looking for God, I got. Let me tell you something, man. Let me just explain this to you. The Jets are on the run. They're on the run on this one. We can see the handwriting on the wall, and I want the red meat today. Well, you can do it, but what's the harm? Because we're going to be on tomorrow. You know, I hope. Friday. We're going to be on post-Labor Day. Back on a more normal schedule away from the fair. And there's going to be plenty of time to drill down on this even more and figure out exactly who's to blame, why that individual is to blame. And the other game I'm not going to play today is that, I'm getting the list. Well, look at the number of mass shootings in which a transgender individual was allegedly involved. And in recent years, there have been a couple. I'm not going to do the game that everybody else does with have you checked the master list that goes back more than 15 minutes of mass shootings and who's responsible for them? And again, on this show, I've gotten in trouble for this. I have no problem discussing some transgender issues as it pertains to sports participation. We've gotten into that. I think there's serious question in some cases about fairness. We talked about it regarding the softball player.
Yep, here
in the state
in high school.
We've quoted individuals like Martina Navratilova on this particular subject, and we have even talked about, well, what's the right age in terms of letting individuals make this rather momentous transition? Parental involvement, it's fair game. But the idea that you're going to make today's story about the transition without knowing anything else, as opposed to the heinous behavior that we have seen repeated over and over and over again by lots of individuals over the decades that we're not transitioning as far as we know, but we're sick. This individual is sick. I have no problem saying that. I have zero sympathy for this individual. None. I don't have, like I said, it's not just the crime, it's the way it was committed in this case. I just shake my head and say, when you actually include in your grandiose delusions of what you think, whatever statement you think you're making, you're barricading in children. You are dead to me. I don't have any reason to want to negotiate with that individual at all. So in any case, it's a daily show, at least 5 days a week, and I'm still on, as shocking and ridiculous as it is, on Sundays, for God's sake. And part of the reason we don't really talk much non-sports on Sunday is to have that at least little respite that makes me feel a little bit more sane from time to time. So we'll leave it at that for now in that regard. And by the way, the Bradshaw and Bryant text line is open, 64686. Let's come back and we'll sort of reset what we know at this point regarding this case. The update, a couple of interesting things from the police chief, Chief O'Hara, regarding the investigation. And he did say, by the way, we talked briefly with the chief about violence just within the last 24 hours and that they have arrested an accomplice. The chief is saying they still haven't arrested the prime suspect in that shooting, which was, I think, believed to be targeted.
The one yesterday afternoon?
Yes, yesterday afternoon. But I think they did arrest, did he say one or two individuals who were there and they're claiming helped commit the crime as well. So we'll get back into that in a little more detail. A couple of other thoughts about the day's activities and how these stories do tend, whether they should or not, hit differently when school children are involved. Wants to know via Twitter, via X, why is it controversial to point out the shooter was transgender? If it was a MAGA, you'd have said it 15 times so far. Embarrassing, dude. I said it 5-10 minutes into the show. What do you know? What's really stupid about this? Some of this discussion. Some people are so intent on hating the boogeyman. In this case, I'm the boogeyman. In isolating the boogeyman, that they pretend I've done stuff that I haven't even done. I'd also try to gently mention to Bob, I laid out the history of this individual to identify the individual. That's become part of the story. The name change. The transitioning as well. It might end up being Jermaine. But we don't know that yet. We don't. We think we do. And for people who are transphobic, they already know because they want it. They want it to be so badly. That's the problem with all of our rhetoric. It's why we can't have any of these conversations. And Bob makes it sound like the act of being transgender is in itself intrinsically political, the way being a MAGA is political. He kind of reveals himself in that regard. Being transgender does not have to be political for that one individual. It may well be in this. It may end up being part of the story. We will not run from it. But we haven't. He's pretending we've avoided it when we've talked about it at least at 3 different parts of this show already. That's when you know it's just about Dan's the boogeyman. So I have to attach qualities to him or even conduct to him that doesn't even meet the reality of what he has said through the first hour and 22 minutes of the show. Doesn't even make a difference. That's also kind of where we are. I mentioned before the break, the school part of this, it always, and this is obviously not the first school shooting we've had. I think for most people, whether they have children or not, adds another layer to it because we want to believe that that schools are the last refuge, right, of safety and innocence and sort of letting, there's the outside world out there, there's that, but I'm in this school bubble in which I have relative safety. Well, obviously, we've had too many school shootings for anybody to believe that at this point. And you reminded me of what took place this morning for what orientation day at Deep Haven Elementary involving your kids, correct?
Yeah, and my daughter has the same teacher that my boys have had as a first grader. And as they're going through their orientation, and this is before we even knew anything about this shooting in Minneapolis, we were just going through and, doing the scavenger hunt and doing the checklist that the teacher has and meeting your teacher. And she knows the teacher from her brothers and seeing who's in your class and all of that. And I've got my middle kid and my youngest kid, my daughter, and she looks at her brother and says, "Where do we do the lockdowns?" And he takes her over and shows her where they do the lockdowns. And it's not the first time we've talked about lockdowns, obviously, in our family, and it's kind of weird that it didn't even really hit me at the time because it is just a fact of their life, whether we want it to be or not, or as hyperbolic as that sounds, like it goes, I don't know how many they do, one every 6 weeks where they practice what to do in an active shooting situation. They've all got their playbook. I know every generation has had some version of this, right? You were hiding under the desk for nuclear bombs.
Yes, like that I was going to say.
I may have even been doing something like that. But then you come home and you find out what the news was and you just go, yeah, it's sadly, you talked about the innocence. I would argue that toothpaste has been gone for a while, right?
There's no question.
And I think, and I'm not being hyperbolic.
But every time it happens again, it just sort of reinforces that who we kidding? I mean, we're so far past that, it's not probably even worth talking about anymore.
And Julius Randle tweeted about it, that it's something that he thinks about every day. And I can say most days, I think about it.
Yeah,
I think about it in some. Because I drop off the kids most days. When they get picked up, I'm obviously here, so I'm not much of a factor for school pickup. So I try to do as many drop-offs as I can when I'm in town and all of those things. And I think about it, I want to say 75% of the time in some form or fashion.
Absolutely.
And I don't obsess over it and I don't belabor it, but it just comes up.
I agree. I do too.
In my mind.
It's hard not to. And then you talk yourself out of it by saying, well, if I wallow in it, it's not going to do me any good. And you just sort of have to hope that, your kid's going to make it safely through this whole process, because most kids obviously do. But it sort of reinforces it on a day like this. I said this with the chief, and I do think, there's the question of what's proper to do on the day something, this sort of tragedy afflicts everyone. And I do think it is the right time. I don't think it's premature, that it's too soon to talk about the level of that we sort of have put these. We've got these sorts of mass shootings. There's a definition that we use to describe what, technically speaking, in the United States of America, a mass shooting must comprise, or what it needs to be defined as. And I understand that to a certain extent, but I also think it's the time to remind folks of what took place in Minneapolis yesterday, as recently as a day ago. Those sorts of shootings that take place in a number of big cities all the time. Chicago, Illinois, Indianapolis is having a very bad year, and I know sometimes some of the numbers actually indicate we're improving. But tell that to the individuals in various communities who are dealing with this stuff day after day. And, I mean, that's the comeback to the folks who say, including the chief, we do not want to militarize, have the National Guard all over the place because of the line that crosses. I tend to agree with them. But I also think what you can go into the inner city of Chicago, Illinois, the west side of Chicago, Illinois, and you can interview individuals, often of color, who are saying, bring them, bring the National Guard, bring whatever. I don't care who it is, but I don't care what the stats say. My family doesn't feel safe. I don't feel safe on a day-to-day basis. And so when we have these discussions about violence, I don't think we should dismiss or leave out shootings that aren't, as I said, sensational. What I have referred to over the years, stealing from a really good book on this subject, the slow motion riot that continues to take place in a number of cities that just get devastated by. There was a guy who called in on one of the shows in Chicago, basically said he's from a big family, and they've lost I think he said 3 or 4 of his brothers to shootings.
Right.
And I I don't think and I know part of the reason we've talked about this, I think part of the reason we don't talk about it is we don't know what to do. It's not that we don't care or we don't think it's important, but we go, it's just too, the problem seems so insurmountable, we don't know where to start. But then when there's this kind of shooting, we feel like, okay, there's at least fewer of those than the sort of routine shootings I'm talking about. And we figure that might be the time for us to have the discussion. We need to continue to have discussions about all of it and what impact that's having on towns pretty much all over America. Certainly a lot of the cities in the United States of America as well. It all should be, I think, part of the same, kind of the same deal for sure. All right, let's make this the bottom of the hour break. We'll get to a couple of other things, updates on this story, the injury update as well. And then, well, as it turns out now, I think we're going to have to punt on Kevin Sievert. He is not going to join us. And we've got a couple of other irons in the fire for other guests that we might have. Lou Goose, who's been covering the news of this day all day for KARE 11, is scheduled to join us on a busy day for him, obviously, about 5:15. So it appears that there are still, at least at Children's Hospital, is it 3 children still being treated at the hospital, did you tell me, Gaardsy?
According to a Seth Kaplan Fox 9 tweet, he got a statement from Children's Minnesota that said that 3 are still in the hospital, 4 have been discharged.
And we don't know about the conditions other than what the chief said earlier. I thought the chief had said they were all out. But regardless, the chief did say they are all expected to survive. That's, I guess, the only piece of encouraging news out of this whole day thus far. The Annunciation Church, the Star Tribune reminds us, has been a Catholic landmark in South Minneapolis for more than 100 years, right? The connection, my guess, a lot of people have, even if they don't have any real association with the church itself, maybe they live nearby. I mean, that's one of those places that I'm sure everybody knew existed, whether they happened to be Catholic or not, correct?
Right.
It's located on West Diamond Lake Road, just east of Lyndale Avenue. There's the church and the school, which serves kids in preschool through 8th grade. And enrollment, they write, has tended to fluctuate over the years. In the mid-'60s, it peaked at 1,100 students. It's now been declining pretty much ever since. Last year, it served about 340 students. The chief did not yet have a number of how many kids were in the church, either praying or about to pray, correct?
Right.
Said that he was going to try to update there. I don't know if there's another press conference scheduled to this point or whether they're just going to do briefings at some point. The church held its first mass in 1922. Following year, 4 Dominican sisters have opened the Red Brick School to 72 students. At least that's according to the church's website. The school offers daily religion classes, international baccalaureate curriculum. Each school also completes an annual service project. School has a sister school in Haiti that opened back in 1998. And I'm guessing there's some folks who are listening who have some either went to the school, have some association with it as well, as far back as it goes, even though those enrollment numbers are not exactly massive. Let me get to a couple of texts that I did try to save. Disclaimer, this is from 612 guy. I'm not against some common sense controls on guns. I was surprised at your guest talking about the chief, Blair Anderson, former St. Cloud police chief, went straight to increase gun control laws and creating programs to address the root causes of violence. He's a retired police chief, didn't address enforcing current laws or increasing penalties for gun crimes until you brought up the need for a multi-pronged approach. I don't know his politics, but his response was exactly the same as what I would expect to hear from most liberal politicians. I'll just stop you there, and I can just tell you, and I think people who listen, who actually listen to the chief when we've had him on, if you think that the chief is not incredibly vocal, not willing to ruffle the feathers of quote-unquote lefty politicians, including those in the Minneapolis City Council who he savages often when we've had him on, that he doesn't pay attention to those issues and believe that's a piece of this, then you're sadly mistaken. He may not have made an emphasis of that today. We had limited amount of time. I brought it up. He didn't exactly run from it. So trust me, he would actually be somewhat stunned to hear that he's associated with only liberal ideas when it comes to law enforcement, because that's not been his history. And in fact, one of the reasons that he has tended to get lauded over the years from some of my righty friends is a belief that, hey, this guy's not willing to call things out when it comes to the question of revolving door justice, et cetera. He's had absolutely no difficulty doing that. So I wanted to at least clear the record to that extent. I think we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater, though. That doesn't mean that, as I said, he believes in what I call the gray areas. He believes in a multi-pronged approach in which you use several tools that, who knows how much they can help, but that give you the best chance at making it even some modest improvements in this area. But do not, I repeat, do not mistake him for some, hardcore lefty law enforcement type who wants to start a revolution when it comes to law enforcement. He believes in legal law enforcement, but he's not afraid of it. And he most assuredly has not been shy on our show about calling out politicians who he believes ends up being destructive and not at all are not at all contributing to any kind of meaningful solution. More interested in performing and the politics of performance as well. This is from 651 guy. I'm a high school teacher, Dan. I think about these shootings every single day. I've become the headlines of it happening. I've seen the headlines of it happening, more focused on the potential that it happens in my school. I have practiced multiple times in my classroom how to use different objects like desks and chairs to lock and secure doors. I teach in a lab room, have even use different types of lab equipment to see what is the best way to secure and lock a door where nobody could get in or nobody could break through a window or get into an area where I am with my students. It's really starting to take a toll on me. I do sometimes question my longevity in the career with these occurrences. I'm not surprised. It does. We talk about the kids, but it also does have to have an effect on students. Teachers,
the adults
and adults and administrators, the whole bit. I think everybody knows what they signed up for at this point. You can't be surprised that that's part of the issue as we, prepare for, in just a few months, the new year in 2026. But that's, that's sort of where we are. It's not just on the kids just because they're younger. It has to be difficult for teachers too and administrators. And, I really do think, because one of the things that is also coming up today is, what do we do? What do we do about these soft targets?
Yeah.
And the answer is nothing. I mean, when you're talking about this many soft targets,
that's it.
We can pound our chest and feel good about ourselves saying we've got to do something to protect these kids and these soft targets. And the truth of the matter is, now the truth is, in a lot of schools they do have metal detectors.
Yeah.
But even that, metal detectors in this case would have been irrelevant to the story. This individual shot through the windows, including, I think, a stained glass window.
Correct.
And I don't think it's been confirmed at all that he did any shootings from inside the church. So the idea that there's some magical cure for the soft targets. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, we're not being realistic. That's just not. That's not a possibility. And when we've talked about, gun laws historically on this show, my position has never been it's the magical cure. Because I think this is so much more complicated and each case is different. I like playing the odds, which is to say, well, maybe that doesn't eliminate this threat. Maybe, though, it might discourage or eliminate the next threat. what I've said, what I've tried to say to the gun lobby is, without much success, is because the gun lobby will say, well, what you got to deal with is mental illness. That's the problem. It's not, it's a mental, and what I've said is, you're not wrong.
Totally.
This guy was mentally ill.
Clearly.
Or this woman, at whatever you want to say at this point, given the name change, at the age of 17, 4 years ago, whatever it was. So, what I try to say to the gun people is, if you agree that we got greater mental health issues than we ever have, then isn't the more all-encompassing approach, doesn't it make sense while we try to deal with the mental health issue, part of it, that we make it harder, at least harder, not impossible, but harder to get some of this weaponry into the hands of the wrong people, correct?
Yeah, that you would think that would be sensible. On the soft targets part of it, because you're right, that has been a popular thing to talk about. And if certain schools, if they want to harden the targets more than they already have, because we've talked about it before, how difficult it is to get into a school now. You used to just be able to walk in. Now you need to be buzzed in. You've got to go through one door typically, right? The side entrances are usually all locked up now.
Yes.
And so I think they've tried as much as they can to harden the targets because,
yes.
But people say stuff like, well, what if we get retired police officers or retired veterans or retired, and we just line them up at all these different schools? Do you know how many elementary schools there are? Let's just say in Minneapolis, for example, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Do you know how many retired we can't even, how are we going to get 1,000 retired cops and veterans to just go, yeah, I'm good.
I'm there, right.
It doesn't, I get the instinct, and that would be great if we could come together with some type of retired vet or cop program. But again, it sounds good to say on a day like this. It just doesn't make any sense in practicality. Again, if different schools can find somebody and say, hey, you know what? We are going to hire this person, or we're going to go to our local police department and find a school resource officers. Because remember, we took those out of schools a few years ago.
That's true.
And so,
which I thought was ridiculous.
It was, and it remains for a million different reasons. But we also
one of my left wing, rants, how ridiculous it was to take those individuals out of schools.
And was it Parkland in Florida where they had a police officer there? And we saw the video of the guy doing absolutely nothing.
Yes,
so it sounds good.
Yeah.
And yes, we should all be thinking about ways to harden the soft targets because they are sitting ducks.
No question.
As crass as that is to say, at a lot of these places, and you do need to make sure that the buildings are as secure as possible, but it's not that easy.
To that point, this is from I don't know where area code 727 is. Schools and churches just need more security even during non-business hours. Let's say you block those doors at night. If they had cameras that notified them of movement like a trail cam, this wouldn't happen. They need more armed security or police present, 4 or 5 per school, and metal detectors, just my thought. Well, again, I think the last part of that is not practical. In most situations. Now, at a time like this, is it always helpful to say, all right, we're going to take another look at our security? Are there things we can be more sophisticated about?
Sure.
Cameras we could be better about? That's money. I just think we've got for any of these ideas, this panacea, well, this was the thing that was going to, well, if Columbine didn't bring us together on this, then nothing will. And part of my problem with that is we do want to make this assumption that whatever we do, whatever we think we can do with a snap of the fingers, we will eliminate the possibility or probability of what happened this morning in South Minneapolis. And it's just not that simple. We don't know enough yet about this case, I don't think, where we can adequately say it. I mean, we're all going to want to get, for me, in following the story, what I'm going to be most interested in is the obvious. Okay, there's one report out there that this individual's father confirmed some sort of mental illness issue. I don't know if that's true, but that's what I want to follow. Okay, what do the parents know in that regard? What did they attempt to do? Because we've had cases where parents have been derelict. There's no question about it. There have also been other cases where they've all but begged either law enforcement types or those who deal with these sorts of mental health issues to say, my kid needs to be confined. There's a problem here, right?
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, authorities come back and say, well, there's only so much we can do unless there's an overt act, that this individual is involved in. But that's part of what I want to know. What do the parents know about the track that this individual seemed to be heading on, right? And sometimes it ends up being quite a scathing indictment. I don't remember which case it was. Which case was it where they had the kids who were involved in it? Wouldn't have been Columbine. Where had like weaponry under their beds? Was it that one or was it a different one?
I don't remember.
Where you go, well, come on, man. I mean, where are we on this thing? And, like I said earlier, the chief likes to bring up where are the parents through a lot of these things. And he gets, especially as police chief, he used to get hammered on that. That's not a position that you're supposed to take. It wasn't a politically correct position. He doesn't care anymore. In part, I think now because he's retired. But there's so many tentacles to this, and there's so much yet to learn about the specifics in this case. But we're kind of in that culture now where
you grab your
playbook, and you go, we got them. We got the bad guys politically on the run, and I'm gonna read online from the people that will tell me what I want to hear, not necessarily the whole story. There's not going to be any nuance with that. There's not going to be, well, this is concerning, but we got to keep this in mind because we're not really sure so far on this. In that climate, that just goes away, and you're left with, we got him. This is it. We got him we got the bad guys on the run in this case, and we got to seize upon the opportunity. I'll give you another good example. I got a couple texts on this earlier too. Well, there's just this feeling of lawlessness in general under the Walz administration. And this is just another example of it. And I scratch my head and I go, well, again, that's largely, you're saying that largely because you don't like Governor Walz or you don't respect him politically, which is, you're right. And we haven't been shy at all through several of these scandals, including not just the Feeding Our Future scandal, but the more recent one that, quite frankly, might not end up being as much money, but based on everything we're hearing, might be even more embarrassing about the lack of follow-through, that the way the laws were almost written, it all but demanded that people cheat the system. Well, yeah, okay. I think there's grounds to have discussion about what sort of climate, kind of rules have been set up. Have you been too cavalier about not protecting all of that money that you're doling out? Or is it just much easier to feel good about being popular about just sending the money out in the other direction? But it becomes too easy to want to connect him to everything. And and I know, those same people wouldn't connect the governor of the state of Minnesota to what took place this morning if the governor was a Republican. And it's just as simple as that. The idea that there was something that the governor did that made all of the difference in that regard. Maybe there'll be some magic clue that we get later that might link, but we don't have it yet. And again, you're trying too hard. If that's where you go to, if that's your go-to position on day one, as opposed to, more than anything, just thinking about the emotional toll of these families who've lost children and whose lives have been obviously changed forever. Not to mention, those are the other victims, even those who've survived, and what they might be dealing with going forward as well. It's that I think should be, to a certain extent, a greater amount of the emphasis. Or again, if you want to throw out, you are saying, well, no, this is too important. We got to throw out some of the ramifications of this. Just the idea that we don't know what we don't know yet. And there'll be plenty of time to get to that place if we want, where we're going to try to, pin it on one side of the political aisle or another. So let's do this. Top of the hour break. What do we do? I didn't even talk about.
We can do top five if you want. I do want to remind people, though, we're obviously not at the State Fair tonight.
Correct.
the Power Trip was scheduled to be at the State Fair immediately following us tonight. They will not be at the State Fair tonight. For those Power Trip rubes that were looking to go, that has been rescheduled for Labor Day at 2 o'clock. So we're obviously not there. We had a live show planned for us after us. Power Trip's not coming out tonight. They'll be Monday at 2 o'clock for people that were interested in going tonight. And
so Labor Day Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
Is when the Power Trip will be back out there.
Gotcha. Good to know.
And
good reminder.
But we hope to be back out there tomorrow. That's the plan, is to be back out there tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the plan
at
this point. And it's just a 2-hour show because Gophers, of course, are in action, season opener against the University of Buffalo. All right, we've gone pretty much wall to wall with this story from the start, pretty much just kind of transitioning during our live coverage of the press conference. It included several dignitaries and ultimately the police chief O'Hara taking questions from the reporters as well. So we'll go a little toy department here for a while and get into a couple of other issues regarding this story and update you on anything new that we indeed might have learned. Top 5 will include the obvious stuff, I assume, the Adam Thielen news.
A new Wolves boss and Adam Thielen's coming home.
Yeah, those are two pretty significant toy departments.